Please give it up for Thomas Sadoski. Mr. Glen Powell. Not only, I don't know what to say about his performance, Jonathan Majors, everybody. Director, JD Dillard.
Hurry up, JD.
Gentlemen, one more round of applause. Look at this. It's been, I was talking to you guys outside, it's been quite a journey for this film, not only in the years it took to get it made, but in showing it around the country and different festivals. You had your premiere last night. These guys might be running on fumes. But talk to me a little bit about the recent journey of this film, of seeing how it's touching folks in, I would expect, the optimal way. And this is the dream of a filmmaker and a cast, to see it just work on every level.
Yeah. You know, when you come to our set, on all of our monitors, there's a little acronym written in gaff tape under that just says, "What do you want them to feel?" And the beautiful thing about the sort of rollout that we've been able to do is that you actually get to meet them. So you kind of ask that question abstractly, you know, but you lens the film through that question. But to actually get to like do this and chat and commune and, you know, see what people bring to the movie is, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, and the sort of points of connection are not ever as obvious as you think. But it's just, yeah, it's been a helpful and kind of beautiful reminder of why we do this.
I think the only person in this room that hasn't seen Devotion now is sitting on the stage. Jonathan?
Yeah.
That's true. Wow, did I tell you that? Did you? I tell you that.
I must
be tired, yeah.
So we haven't worn you down yet. Does this go for every film? Is this just the Jonathan Majors thing? It's like the experience. It's too much to see the finished sausage, as it were. What's it about?
Straight up, it's probably, I come from the theater, and there was no playback in the theater, you know, and what it does for me is it makes the process of making something extremely unique, makes me pay attention in a different way. I think I've said to every director, usually at a peak point of frustration on their part, where I say, listen, man, I don't give a fuck. I'm not watching this movie. This is all I've got. You know what I mean? And I said, this is it. You remember the conversation? And I remember the scene. We won't talk about it. I go, this is it for me. You know what I mean? And the it starts from the inception. When I get the script, when I meet with my co-star, when I meet with my fellow actors, when I'm, you know, that's when it starts. And I'm invested in that. And then I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was going to be wicked when it hit the screen. So it's a matter of trust in them from that point forward. But it's not ADR. I mean, I know it. Manchester's wicked. You know what I mean? And I know it looks good. And,
I'll tell you one thing about Jonathan is that before we would do a take, he would say two things. First off, you go, "Here it comes," which was my favorite thing. You knew he was going to bring it, and he's like, "Oh, here it comes." I'm like,
Are there some takes where it's not "here it comes"? Or it's like,
when he says "here it comes," you know it's coming. The other thing that we connected were two Texas boys who played Texas football, and the other thing that we would say was Omaha.
Oh my God.
Omaha. Which means, you know, we're in sync, we're in line, we're calling an audible, and it's about to get rowdy. And that was another thing, is like, it's just the connectivity of this relationship and the relationship of the whole cast was really, really special. But watching Jonathan just laser focused, I do think there's something to that, to not seeing it, to creating magic on set, not caring about the result as much as an actor that is, you know, makes that place kind of sanctuary.
Let's talk a little bit about the journey to get this movie made. This actually begins with you, Glenn, in terms of encountering the material, encountering the story. 6, 7 years ago, you read this book. Well, you had a thriving career, but you were not Glen Top Gun Powell back then. So,
Thank you for saying my full name.
he wasn't a DMV today. He just changed it the other day. It's weird. That tattoo is odd, but whatever.
I don't know why my mom named me that.
Was it a tough movie to get made in a nutshell? I mean, every movie's tough to get made, but what was the turning point? What was the journey like in a nutshell to get this one to the big screen?
I think this has been a movie I've been so passionate about for so many years, and I read the book, and I will say that I took it out to a few people. Black Label was the real engine behind it. They got it immediately. It was right after I did Hidden Figures. I remember pitching it to all the Smiths the weekend of the Golden Globes where we were nominated for Hidden Figures. And I remember that was like them signing on and saying, we'll develop this script with you and we'll turn this into something special. But what really made this thing a really hard thing, all the things that made this such a unique movie and make it so special are the reasons that studios were like, we're not going to make this movie. In the fact that it's incredibly nuanced. It's original. It doesn't end in a way that it's not tied up with a bow. It's not IP driven. It's not actor. I mean, it's like, with all due respect to Jonathan Majors, who we just went to a theater and saw his posters everywhere. Everybody now gets it, but at the time, nobody really knew who anybody was, and it was a harder sell for all of us. And I gotta say, like, the fact that Black Label really doubled down and tripled down on this thing was incredibly important. And now we have the Sony, who's been a great partner and so passionate about it. But over 5 years, I will say this movie probably fell apart. And JD, you can attest this 5 or 6 times that we were like, oh, this is really bad. We gotta pick up the pieces and figure this thing out. So I still can't believe that we're here and we get to show it to people, and the response has been just incredible.
I think one of the reasons why it works for me and for audiences is that it kind of has this yin and yang thing where it embraces, it's familiar, yet it is grounded in a reality and an authenticity that we're not used to seeing in a story like this. Often when we see these period kind of true life tales, it feels like we're not watching real human beings, and you're not getting that sense of true camaraderie, etc. I'm just curious. Let's start with you, Tom. It's just like you read a script. It's clear the script works, but like, what are you sensing on set that is different? That's making this feel a little bit more tangible, a little bit more real. Is it the environment? Is it your company of actors? What did you feel in the making of this film that maybe gave you a good indicator?
If you don't mind, it's not clear how the script works. You read the script and you say, this could work, but it's going to require a lot of the right pieces to be in place for it to be what it sets out to achieve to be. What it wants to be, what it needs to be, frankly. And then when you walk on set, you go through the meeting process and do your research on everybody, and you say your prayers to the artistic gods. Like, I hope that my spidey senses on this one are right. You show up on set, and the expectation, your hopeful expectation, is exceeded on levels that you've never witnessed before. At least for me, in film. I'm a theater rat too, and so I have a very calibrated bullshit detector, and I have a hard time stomaching it, and these guys will tell you I'm not afraid to run my mouth about it, and I walked onto the set and was completely blown away. And it starts at the top. It starts with JD, who this entire group, not just cast, but crew, wanted to work for. And I mean really work for. We shot this in the middle of the pandemic in Savannah, Georgia, which I'm not entirely sure if you guys realize this or not, but there was no pandemic in Savannah, Georgia. There was for us, and this is pre-vaccines and all of this sort of stuff. So like we were isolated and frankly a little bit under the gun. They would be sitting in our apartments and the kids and everything, and like you'd see like the little bar
Sip and cycle.
Yep. Go by. And you're like, look, there went the COVID machine. So we were definitely under the gun. When you come to work and you see that man and you see how seriously he's taking this and how personal this story is to him, and you are on it. And then from moment one that the cameras turn on, you see the dedication and the care and the love that these men have brought to this story over the years that they have fought for this, that they have invested in this. And, the camaraderie builds itself when people care. And that's why you have hired artists, because artists care, and that's what makes something different, unique, special, like we were talking about. It sits outside of the norm, and it's important that it does.
And look, at any endeavor for a filmmaker, you hope it feels like a passion project. You hope it feels like it's in their blood. But in this case, truly, this feels like it was meant to be. This is in your blood. Talk a little bit about your background and how that informed your approach, your passion for this material, and how it permeated the set down to, I believe your dad was a part of this production to a degree, wasn't he?
You hope that there's like a thing that you can lock into on, the journey that's going to sort of, you're going to spend the next few years of your life on. And when I read the script for the first time, I cried my way through it, which, especially for those of us who have to read scripts a lot, how incredibly rare that is. And it was kind of because of two things. I mean, one, the story of Jesse and Tom and Daisy and the 32s was just so cosmically unreal to me. I related so specifically to Jesse's isolation. But then the other side of that was the overlap to my dad's life, who was a naval aviator 30 years after Jesse, the Navy's second Black Blue Angel. I'd grown up, my dad, like Jesse, is a numbered individual. When people introduce me, say, he's the second, and Jesse was the first. So I found myself with this kind of, sometimes you take a job and sometimes you're called to a job. And I found myself with this opportunity to not just share Jesse and Tom and everyone involved's story, but then in the weirdest way, like kind of make a biopic about my dad too. So that's, so I had a little tie to the material. Yeah, a little tie to the material.
Jonathan, I've heard you talk about your approach to acting as like you're almost trying to do the least amount of acting possible. You're trying to connect with the character, obviously, and be that person, live that life. And this is someone that's living in a different context, a different world. You're not a pilot, as far as I know. You're not a Melody in 1950. How do you bridge that gap? How do you find Jesse?
You're wrong on both of those points.
I love it. This is one where it really is the company you keep. There are limitations to my own experience where I go, bro, I've never flown a plane, and that's where Black Label and Glen really stepped in there, like, all right, go ahead, try it. Here's the people, here's the plane, here's the phone call. We're here to help, and so they knew my process, and or maybe they didn't. It was just divine. But I got to get in those planes and work that out and learn the hard way on what it is to be a small minute fraction of what it is to be a naval aviator or an aviator. But it was in those moments where I felt, okay, yeah, there's no acting here. When you're in that plane and that motherfucker goes that way and you're holding on to it. I was like, oh, there's Jesse. Also like, oh, I got him. Or he's got me. When the banana's coming up, the banana's going down. You're like, yeah, cool. We're in it now. So that was the most exterior elements of it, and the interior, common practice.
Wow, nothing common about a scene like the one that you shot, I believe, on the second day of the shoot, is the scene where Jesse is staring into a mirror and reciting from his book that he's been writing these horrible things he's heard all his life. I guess, I don't know, whoever, I think, obviously you were there, Glenn, I think you observed this from your perspective.
I wasn't working that day, but I showed up as a wingman, but also as just a fan.
We were all there that day. The 32s were all there that day. We had other stuff to shoot that day too, so everybody accidentally showed up early. And I don't think you know this.
But I didn't know you together.
Yeah, we were all there. People were walking in and out of Video Village, and the look on their faces that they were coming out with was like, you could see artistic fire happening.
Did you, were there different approaches to that scene, or was it, I don't even know if you've seen the finished scene actually, now that I asked that question, but did you know your way into that scene, or are there different ways to approach a monumental, emotional moment like that?
Well, no prep for that. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of you just there's no just about it. It's very much like, okay, it's on now. But for that particular scene on that particular day, apparently the angel showed up. And the angel showed up, and Jesse's a special cat. And as you all witnessed, the things that are being said there are just, it's the bottom belly of humanity, And it's something that this kid has done, since he was a boy, and there are roles in which you feel implicated, and there are roles in which you feel called to do, and this is one of those, that was the moment in the script where I went, okay, let's take it there, and then on the day, and I'll conclude, what's written in the script, very much to your point, is the script was good. Was the script finished? No. The script never is. Spoiler alert. You know what I mean? No matter how dope you think your script is, it's not, bro. You know what I mean? Not until you get your DP, you get your director, you get your actors, you get the flesh and blood that's gonna make it. And in this particular day, on this particular scene, the language that's being used is so horrific, But I'll also be honest with you, it's commonplace for me. I grew up in Texas. He came from Mississippi. I've heard these things. Furthermore, my people have heard these things. My granddaddy heard these things. My father heard these things. And so the stakes of the film and the stakes of the moment are through the roof in that moment for me as an artist, where I go, this is the moment. You talk all this shit. This is the moment here. You got to break now. You've got to break because you are the avatar. You are the thing that represents your people, and people in general, because this happens to everybody. And so in that moment, yeah, we had the script. First, the rehearsal, I'm respectful. This is what you wrote. This is what I'm saying. Boom, right? Take two, or on the day, as we call it, it's on. Because it starts, it's a single shot, right? It's a one shot, right?
Yeah, because we start with you looking right into the camera.
Come out the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I come down, and the language just kind of goes away, on the day. And something we began to talk about early on in our workshops would be, does Jesse have anything else to say? What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. And you get in that mirror, and the language just shifts. And what ends up coming out are things I've heard before. And there's a line about, flying. That's clearly not from me. Who's that from? Well, here comes Jesse. and here comes my granddaddy, and here comes his papa, and we're all in there, we're all present. And the language comes out, and the pain happens, and then what happens, and I think this is the most important part of the scene, and it's not as dramatic, but it's the healing that happens at the end. Because you have to understand, there's two people in the scene. There's Jesse, and there's who's Jesse talking to. And Jesse's talking to Jesse. So you got two people in the scene. And he's also watching himself. And what JD did so brilliantly, this brilliant director, he came in maybe take 2, 3. It's that, because we only did 4. Maybe 4. I have to check my journal. But he came out and essentially, I'll paraphrase, he said, yeah, we're not doing that though. We're not, at the end of it, I was just, right? And then he comes in and goes, yeah, but then we gotta button it up, right? And then that was the scene, right? That we watched the hurt, we watched the breaking, and then we watched the healing. And Jesse is watching himself break himself and then heal himself. And so if he can do that, which is a miracle, right? He can land that fucking plane. You know what I mean? And that's the message of the scene. That's the beauty of the scene. That's what happened.
Sadly, our time is out. All I can say is you guys really nailed this. It's a great tribute to these amazing men and women that were a part of the story. You brought them back to life in a certain way, and I know everybody here agrees. It's a great piece of work. Spread the good word. It's out November 23rd.